father like I'm Naruto. Keep the blade on me, Ichigo. Who really wanna go toe for toe? GTR from Tokyo. Diamonds whipping up on the stove. Lucky man like a 4-leaf clove. Diamonds wanna go and visit.
Hello everyone, this is Nagato's Revenge and welcome back to my channel. For today's tutorial, I'm basically going to be showcasing on how to downgrade your PlayStation Vita or your PlayStation TV to a lower firmware. So for example, I am going to be using my PlayStation Vita 1000 that is on 3.70 firmware, and I'm going to successfully downgrade it in this video to 3.60. And my goal, the reason why I'm going to try to downgrade it to firmware 3.60, so I'm able to be using Henkaku Enso for this process. If you guys did enjoy this video, go ahead and smash that like button and go ahead and subscribe to my channel, because I have tons of tutorials for the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation Vita, PS4, and also for the PlayStation Classic, and I got a lot of more stuff coming very soon as well. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the main part of the tutorial. So first things first, guys, let's go ahead and talk about the website right now. If y'all guys don't know, make sure that you log in, or basically just type in the URL bar, and I'll have every link in the description below, and also any files I use will be in the downloads as well in the description. But just go ahead and go to the official page for GitHub. Don't use any secondary or third party, just to be sure that we aren't downloading the same files and they're not corrupted, or somebody's giving out fake information. But the first thing we're going to go ahead and talk about is the device, or basically how to do this process. So if you guys are on firmware from 3.60 to 3.70, you're able to do this downgrade. And for example, if you were on, like, let's say 3.65 and you want to go back to 3.60, for example, you can do that. If you're on 3.70 and you just installed the new Trinity hack as well, you could go back down to 360. So your device needs to be able to, or should already been ran, or already run, Henkaku, H-Encore, or the new Trinity Exploit. Also, what you need, and this is only for the Vita and not the PSTV, your device battery has to be at least at 50%. In my case, what I usually like to do is just go ahead and charge up your Vita to 100%. It's not really required, but for these type of modifications and anything with hard, or basically anything that deals with updating and stuff, you want to make sure that your device is always on 100%, especially with handhelds. Also, if y'all guys are we're old comers for the Vita scene, and y'all basically already had no NPDRM plugins installed, or SD to Vita and all that stuff installed, make sure you disable that, and later on in the video I'll get in more detail on how to do that process as well. Also, with that being said, for this process is speaking about SD to Vita. So for guys that are using SD to Vita on like Vita 1000s or 2000s, make sure you disable that as well, because if you try to relaunch Maduro on SD to Vita, basically the app won't boot up. And also, speaking about memory cards and stuff like that, with the PlayStation Vita 1000 especially, you need a memory card. So what I'm using, I have a PlayStation Vita 1000, you need a memory card. If you guys don't have a memory card, but you do own a PlayStation Vita 2000, aka a PS Vita Slim, you could use just the internal 1 GB storage that comes with it, and same thing with the PlayStation TV. Getting those 3 requirements and prerequisites out the way. Also, if you guys already had IMCUnlock by SKGleba, sorry I couldn't say your name correctly, make sure to install that before to attempt to downgrade, because you could run into some issues and bugs along the way. But with that being said, I guess I explained that pretty much very well. If you guys have any questions on that portion, just leave some comments down below and I'll try to answer them. But let's go ahead and get into the installation process. So what you want to do is go ahead and download this .vbk, and also for this process you need Vita Shell. I have a link on that as well if you don't know how to download that. But go ahead and download this VBK. In this case, mine is on my desktop right here. Once you do that, let's go to the second step at hand. We're going to have to obtain basically our desired firmware, and make sure that that firmware you want to go to is officially hackable. So basically from firmware 3.60 guys to 3.70, those are your target updates. But for my example, I highly recommend people going to either 3.65 or 3.60 so we can install Henkaku Enso. And basically, if y'all guys don't know what Henkaku is basically a tie-hen exploit that allows your system to not always run Henkaku when you have to boot up. So for example, when you restart your Vita anytime, y'all guys usually have to run H-Encore, Henkaku, or the Trinity Exploit, since that's the new one. But with Henkaku Enso, you could just boot into your device and automatically run on side code. So essentially, it's like a custom firmware, but it's really not. But that's just essentially Henkaku Enso. So what we need to do now is either use these two websites of our choice. So here's this one website right here. I have a link in the description below. This is called Darfsterny, and what this website does, or basically what it is, has a complete archive of every PlayStation Vita firmware, and also the same thing with the PSTV firmwares as well, which is the same thing as Vita ones. But with this, you could go ahead and choose your firmware of your choice that you want to downgrade from. In this case, y'all guys mostly y'all using retail Vitas, and if y'all guys did have a test kit Vita or dev kit video, y'all probably know what y'all doing already. But make sure not to download any of the dev kit firmwares, or basically test kit firmwares, or try to downgrade with that, because you are at risk of breaking your system and turning your PlayStation Vita into a paperweight, and it won't work ever again. But what I'm going to do now is use this website right here. Just go ahead and click next, and then since I'm going to be downgrading 3.60 in this video, I'm just going to head in. Well, I'm not going to click it and download it, but I already have the little zip file that comes with it. So once you download it, you could just extract it to your desktop as shown here, and then with WinRAR or 7-zip, you could just extract the folder to your desktop as shown here, which I'm doing right now. And okay, I'll explain the content. So what will be in these folders right now will be like another set of pups and stuff. So in this folder, it contains a bunch of files. One is just for the official firmware, like pre-beta I guess firmware, and then there's also the system data firmware. Which one we're going to focus on, if you guys are going on to 3.60 along with me, is go ahead and just extract this folder right here. And this folder is basically the official firmware, not the beta or pre-beta one that we're looking for. And what you should get is basically this PSP to update.pub as shown right here. And now what we need to focus on is just go ahead and open up this txt, and we're going to focus on the MD5 hashes. So we're going to focus on this one right here and copy that just by scrolling over it and pasting. And I'll explain a little bit why we're doing this in a second. So if I go back to here, and I have another website along called online MD5 hash. What this basically does, let me go ahead and restart the website. What basically this does is check the file sum of your file. So in this case, we're going to be checking the file sum / hash sum of our PS Vita updates. And the reason why we're doing that is just to verify if the actual update is like the update what it says it is, and also if the file is corrupt and stuff, something like that. It's always, this is not required, but it's always good like practice of doing this, due to the fact you want to ensure that you're installing the right update onto your PlayStation Vita. So what you want to do now is go ahead and just minimize Google Chrome or whatever browser you have. Drag and drop the PSP to update.pub, and what it's doing now is basically uploading the file to its little server, and now it's just going to try to compare and string out the hash sum. So as you see here, this is the MD5 hash that has been created from this. If we just go ahead and hit Control V from our thing, you should get this little check mark right here, guys, and basically that verifies that the file checksum is what the file says it is, and it's not corrupt. So once you verify that, you got your firmware of your choice. What we're going to do now is go ahead and follow the third step. In this case is basically, the second step. And basically once we obtain our firmware, which we did, we're gonna have to install Maduro onto Vita Shell. So I'm going to go ahead and boot back into my Vita, and I'll show it on the screen a little bit in a second, and I'll explain some more steps about how to do this process. So meet y'all guys back onto the Vita. Alright guys, since we're back on the PlayStation Vita as of right now, what we need to do is go ahead and run Vita Shell. If you guys are using Trinity, the original Trinity hack, just go ahead and boot it up first, just to run basically your exploit. If you're using H-Encore, just do the same thing as that method. As shown here, I'm basically using the Trinity Exploit for 3.70. And just let that do its thing. And then what you want to do right here, guys, if you're on Trinity, go ahead and hit install Henkaku. If you're using H-Encore, you just do the same method as well. It will just say install Henkaku. But now what we need to do is go ahead and boot up into Vita Shell. And then once we boot into Vita Shell, guys, what we need to do is go ahead and hit start, and then from here just go use your directional D-pad button, and then where's the select button, and with the left and right D-pad you could just select to FTP, and then just hit circle again, and then from there go ahead and hit select. And if your Wi-Fi is on, and also if you already have Homebrew or Unsafe Homebrew enabled, you should get your IP shown as of right here. What I'm going to do now is go ahead and toggle back to my desktop right now. Go ahead and back that out, and now we're going to boot up into Filezilla. And the reason why we're going to boot into Filezilla, here, I'll just exit out just to show y'all how it will look with a fresh boot. Go ahead and boot into Filezilla, and I have a link in the description below as well. But the IP that is showcased onto your PlayStation Vita as of right now, what you want to do is go ahead and type it in. So in my case, mine is 10.0.0.248. And then I also got to type in my port, and always for the port, guys, for the Vita is 1337. Just go ahead and hit quick connect. And now what you want to do is take the Maduro or Maduro.vpk, aka the Downgrader app, and just go ahead and put that into UX0. And then from here you should get this little notification on your Windows desktop that all your files have been successfully transferred over. And now what we want to do is go ahead and just exit out of Filezilla, and I'll meet you guys back onto the Vita real quick. Let me just go ahead and switch back. Alright, so as of right now you should see basically I'm back on my Vita. What we need to do is go ahead and hit X on our PlayStation Vita, go into UX0, which is aka your memory card, guys. Scroll all the way down, and then you should see the Maduro.vpk. Just go ahead and hit X and install packages, and make sure you also in basically the Henkaku settings you have unsigned Homebrew, and then you'll have to basically just extend your permissions and hit continue just to install this VPK. But once we do that, guys, what we need to do now is once that basically that process is done, we need to also make sure that we have to obtain our VPK as well. I mean, excuse me, not our VPK, but we got to put in our firmware that we want to go to. So what we need to do is just go into app real quick, go to M0DORU000, aka Maduro, and then just right here on the root of this is where we're going to be dumping our firmware. So what we need to do now is hit select right now, and then boot up our FTP server again. And now where we're going to go to is back to our PC, and then go back into Filezilla, because we needed to initially install that so we could get the directories. So if I go back into Filezilla right here, it's just the same premise. Go ahead and type in your IP address. In this case, this is mine. The port, like I said before, is 1337. And now what we need to do is go to UX0, go to app, and then Maduro 000, and then right here we need to basically from our firmware that we wanted to, or basically where we want to go to, excuse me, just go ahead and drag and drop in Filezilla just like this. And since we already checked the MD5 hashes, we can guarantee that this file is not corrupt, and you know, we verified that this is the actual firmware update that we want to go to. So we could just minimize that right now, and then from here it's going to basically do its thing and take some time to transfer. So I'm just going to basically pause the video right here, and then once that process is done, I'll go back onto my Vita and explain the next necessary steps. Okay, so as shown here right now on the screen, basically my firmware update of my choice, which is 3.60, has been transferred over. And now what we need to do is basically just go ahead and hit circle back out of the app and get back into UX0, aka our memory card. And now what we need to do is basically rename this folder, aka our type folder, because this is where all of our plugins are located. Make sure, guys, if you are on Henkaku Enso, and this is only for 3.65 users, go ahead and disable Enso. If you guys are, like I said before, if you have SD to Vita are already previously running, go ahead and revert back to your regular memory card. And with that being said, let's go ahead and focus on this portion right now. So for our Thai folder, we gotta basically rename it to something random. So I'm just gonna name mine with Thai and with a Z at the end. And in our UR0 directory, you got to do the same thing. So in UR0, scroll all the way down to here, or excuse me, to Thai, just rename it to this with a Z. And this basically is the easiest method, instead of like just deleting each plugin one by one. By renaming a folder to another directory, basically the Vita won't boot up any of the plugins that are necessary. So what we need to do now is restart our PlayStation Vita and basically just reboot it from Vita Shell. And then this is very important right here, guys. I'm gonna go straight back to my desktop for a second, since I disabled my plugin, so I can't live stream my Vita onto OBS. But right now what we need to do is, once your PlayStation Vita reboots, we basically gotta run into Maduro.vpk and do not click on any other application. So I'll show you guys in a second what I mean once I get my Vita shown via with my iPhone. So I'll meet you guys back in a second. Alright guys, so assuming that you're on back onto your PlayStation Vita, what we want to do now once you reboot it is not to mess with any other apps. And what we need to first go into, if you have H-Encore or Trinity, go ahead and boot Trinity first, or H-Encore. In my case, I'm using Trinity since I'm on 3.70 firmware. But once you basically load whatever exploit host you're using, I'm just gonna wait for this little thing to do its process. What we need to do now is go ahead and hit install Henkaku, and then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and hit exit. And then from here, now we can open up the Maduro app, which will allow us to downgrade our PlayStation Vita. So as shown here, guys, go ahead and we have to enable Unsafe Homebrew before we even do this. So it'll detail you that, and if you did it correctly when you disable your Thai hen, it will ask you to do this, do this. So if you go here to, not network, but Henkaku settings, and enable Unsafe Homebrew, and then just go back from here and then reopen Maduro again, what should happen is, if I scroll here for a second, my current firmware is 3.70. My factory firmware will tell you how low you could basically go. On one of my Vitas, I have basically a kiosk, so I could go to 1.00, but my target firmware I want to go to is 3.60. So if I want to go ahead and select this process, go ahead and hit X on my thing, and then it will ask you, this software is permanent, and mounting this basically to your Vita, if anything goes wrong, there's no recovery, even with a hardware flasher. If you read basically the terms of service, just leave it on the screen right here. Make sure your battery, like I said, is above 100%. And then once that process is done, it'll just ask you to accept the terms of service by hitting X, or if you don't want to accept, it'll basically boot out and just hit R. So in this case, I'm going to hit X. And now what it's doing is cleaning up the UD0 directory, and then I was copying the PlayStation Portable to update to that directory as well. So once that process is done, I'll show you guys in a second. So as shown here, basically it's finished with extracting .self, and now you will get this screen basically saying that your system wants to do a system software update, just like if you were normally doing it for your PlayStation Vita. Do not touch your screen and just let it do its process as well. And then basically I'm just waiting for the green notification bar to pop back up. And as shown here, guys, it's basically going to take 38 seconds just for the thing to update. So it's doing this pretty quickly as well. Just trying to show here right quick. So I got about like 21 seconds left. And then once this process is done, guys, what will happen is basically your PlayStation Vita will reboot, and then from there you should be back on to your said firmware of choice. So I should be since I'm on 3.70, I will be reverting back to 3.60, and then from there I can run, you know, Henkaku and also Henkaku Enso. So there you go right there. Basically your Vita will reboot as shown here on the screen. And now as shown here, just waiting for it to basically back up into the live area. It's updating my database, and this is normal as well, guys, so you're not losing any information on your system. If I hurry up and go ahead and scroll here, and then go to settings and go to system settings real quick. Let me go ahead and get my little USB drive. Hopefully it'll cover my MAC address. So as shown here, I'm basically on system version 3.60. So this is how you successfully downgrade your PlayStation Vita. And now in this video as well, I'm going to show you guys on how to install Henkaku Enso if you're on 3.60. So I'll meet you guys back onto the PC for that portion of this tutorial. Alright guys, so since we successfully downgraded our PlayStation Vita / PlayStation TV, what we're going to do now is go ahead and install Henkaku Enso to our PlayStation Vita. Make sure for the Enso version for PSTV, you're using the PlayStation TV version of Enso and not installing the Vita version of Henkaku Enso to your TV, because that could cause a brick as well. But what you want to do is go ahead and type this URL right here, or just go into the description below, because I'll have links to all this stuff as I stated before. And now just go ahead and click this button right here, and then it's basically going to just download the Enso VPK. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and right click in Google Chrome and show in folder, and then I'm going to drag it to my desktop. And once y'all guys basically downloaded Henkaku Enso from the VPK, what we need to do now is basically go back to our 3.60 PlayStation Vita, and I'll showcase what we need to do and basically how to install Henkaku on it for the very first time, so we could enable some homebrew. So meet you guys back onto the Vita. Alright guys, so since we're back onto the PlayStation Vita, what we need to do now is go ahead and open up our web browser. So that's what I'm doing right here. And now what we need to do is just go into our search bar. Let's just go here and then type in Henkaku. And the reason why we are typing Henkaku, so we could basically get molecular shell, which is basically Vita Shell, and get that installed. So you just want to go onto the first website right here. And now where you want to go to is go ahead and hit this orange button, and basically it'll just give you like the terms of service about Vita Shell and how Henkaku runs and stuff. Just go ahead and hit install. You may get this little error for the first time. That's okay. Basically just stay in the web browser in itself. If this doesn't work the very first time, just go ahead and reboot your Vita. But as of right now, this is molecular shell, or molecule I should say, that is installing. And what it's going to do is basically in 3 seconds boot back out. And now what we can do now is run Henkaku in unsigned code. So we could go ahead and boot back into Vita Shell. And now with that, I'm going to go back to the PC, and we're going to go ahead and hit start. Make sure that we're on the FTP of select button just by going down here, and then making sure that our Vita is able to FTP and host the FTP server. And now what we're going to do now is go ahead and transfer the Enso VPK app using Filezilla, and then once we do that, we're going to install it. So meet you guys back onto the PC. Alright guys, so since we're back on our PC, what we need to do is take our enso.vpk, and then basically once you have Vita Shell opened up as well and it's hosting its FTP server, if you have the Wi-Fi on as well, what we need to do is go ahead and take Filezilla and then type in our IP. In this case, mine is 10.0.0.248, and then our port, or just type in 1337 and then hit quick connect. And it may take a little while right now, but you should see all of my Vita directories. If you don't see all your Vita directories and you only see UX0, make sure you have Unsafe, Homebrew. Basically the check mark is ticked in Henkaku settings. But what we're going to do now is take or minimize Filezilla, take our enso.vpk, and then just drag it and drop it into UX0, aka a memory card. And now what we're going to go to now is back onto the Vita, and I'll show that onto the screen real quick since I got it back to showing up with OBS. And now what we want to do, once that process is done, scroll down to UX0, and then now we want to install our Henkaku Enso. From here, just go ahead and hit OK. It may take a little while. I think it's just stuck at 98%, but there you go right there. And now what we want to do is go ahead and open up and launch Henkaku Enso. And then once we boot it in, if you see right here, it says go ahead and just read it. The software will make permanent modifications to your Vita. If anything goes wrong, there is no recovery, not even with a hardware flasher. The creators provide this tool as is without any warranty of any sort of kind. Blah blah blah. Basically just read the terms of service. They're not responsible if you brick your Vita from this. And then go ahead and hit circle, and then go ahead, if you want to install or reinstall the hack, go ahead and hit X. To uninstall it, hit triangle. To go ahead and fix the boot configuration, if the tie hand doesn't load, just hit square, and then hit circle if you want to back out this program. In this case, we're trying to install it, so go ahead and hit X. And what it's doing now is basically checking the OS0 partition, and it may take a little while right here on the screen. But once it's done, and once I reboot my Vita, what it's basically going to do is you should see your molecular shell logo, and you won't see the PlayStation Vita logo anymore on your screen. So if I go back out to my PC real quick, and I'll reload here, I'll show you guys. I'll just have this on the screen as of right now, but once I reload into OBS with my Vita, I could showcase y'all guys that I am on 3.60 Enso. So meet you guys back once I show that process. Alright guys, so as shown here, if I go into my system settings right now, you can see that I am on 3.60 Enso with a -1111. I'm not just regularly on 3.60 official firmware, and that's how you guys successfully basically downgrade your PlayStation Vita or TV, and then basically reinstall Enso with this process. If you guys did enjoy this video, and you want to leave a like or a comment down below or share with your friends, I really would appreciate that. With that being said, my name is Nagato, and I'm signing out. Thank you guys for watching.
Nice and silky smooth.